I'm going to switch over to wireframe mode, and I'll move the red builder brush out of the way. Now take a look at what we've got here. This is the geometry that was actually produced by the engine that our character will interact with while they're playing around. So you can see where there's some triangles cut where the two pieces merge into each other. As a matter of fact, just to kind of illustrate the point, here in the side view, I'm going to select our little cube brush we just built and move it just slightly into the air. And if I come over to my build options and rebuild the geometry, look at how simple that geometry just got. It's just two great big triangles because the system doesn't have to make any special cuts to make way for this new piece of geometry. The two pieces of geometry are no longer connected. If I put them back together so that they're touching and rebuild one more time, notice how the surface got a lot more complicated to make way for these new vertices. So you see how that kind of works. Now, what I'm going to do is delete this additive brush. I'm just going to hit the delete key. And now it's gone, and I need to rebuild my geometry for the effect to completely disappear. So we'll go back to build and choose geometry for current level. So now we're back to this very simple platform. Now let's take our red builder brush back in the front view again, and I'm going to set it right back on top of our platform, right where it was. This time under Build Special, we'll go under Brush, Add Special. We'll choose a semi-solid, and when I click OK, take a look at the difference. The two brushes are touching, but it didn't create any excess cuts in the geometry. So it kept both things very simple. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned that this was really here as legacy support. In much earlier versions of Unreal Engine 3, you could use brushes to handle things like creating stairways, and it was a little more beneficial to do things like that, or columns, or special decorations with semi-solid brushes so that you weren't creating a whole lot of excess vertices in your geometry. However, these days it's really better off if you're creating static meshes for that sort of thing. So you'd want to bring in a separately modeled static mesh model for things like stairways or columns or whatnot, but the functionality is still here. Now let's go ahead and move the red builder brush out of the way. And finally, if we go back under our brush menu and go back to Add Special just one more time, we have non-solid. This is kind of like a holographic brush. Not only does it not create any extra vertices in our BSP surface, but also a player or a projectile will just pass right through it as if it were a hologram. Now I'm going to go to File and choose New just to wipe out our scene, and we don't need to save any changes. And if we continue down the brush menu, we have a couple of other options. We have Add Volume, and this gives us access to all of the different types of volumes we can add. Volumes are really kind of a topic unto themselves. What a volume is an area designated by the shape of your BSP brush, such that when the player enters that volume, when they enter that space, something will happen. You can change the physics so that gravity is different. You can change the post-process effect to maybe change the colors of the screen. You can change how sounds work. You can stream levels in. A lot of different functionality and a lot of different types of volumes you can use just to handle that sort of stuff. Now down from here we have Import and Export. This allows you to import and export 3D models to use as brushes. So for instance, we could go to Import, and I've got a little ASE file that I created inside of 3ds Max. It's just a simple tall block. So we can open that up, and I'll choose Merge Faces and leave it as a solid mesh. Click OK, and now if I click on my red builder brush, there's that model exactly how it looked inside of 3ds Max brought in as a brush. So very straightforward. So there is a look at the brush menu. The four big players in here are probably going to be your Add, Subtract, Intersect, and De-intersect. You'll also be using Add Volume a bit. However, I must admit, I don't think I ever really come up to this menu because all of this exact same functionality exists here on the left side of your screen in your toolbox, and I find myself using this a lot more often. So that will wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.